All right, Gator fans, this is a treat. We have Shelton Walker from High Top Sports. I am so excited. We have not gotten to hang out in quite a little bit, and I'm glad that we're finally getting around to doing this. We were going to do it, and then you went down sick, and then I went down sick, and I think we're both. Are you fully recovered here?
I think so. I feel like my body just continues to produce snot. I don't know where it comes from. I'm just like in all of it. It just doesn't stop. So I feel good,
I
but
mean, I've passed it around to my whole house. You told me off air you did a great job keeping yourself quarantined. I did not do a great job of that.
yeah,
All of
I
my
locked,
children
locked away.
fighting over my
Locked
water
away.
cup. Like, definitely spread it for sure in our house. But okay, so National Signing Day just happened. I feel like this used to be a day where like people would take off of work. We would follow the ticker on ESPN all day long. Like I have videos of watching commitments with Hadley and Hayden when they were like toddlers and like them wearing Gator stuff and cheering and being all excited. And it's like yesterday almost passed without any acknowledgement because it's not a big deal anymore. Do you miss the original signing day?
Yeah, for sure. I remember Billy had a presser yesterday. I was like, "Why does he have a presser?" They're like, "Oh, it's National Signing." I go, "I'm sorry, what?" Because now in December is to me
Mhm.
that's National Signing Day, and even that day doesn't have the same sex appeal as it once did. And
Nobody's really flipping. Like it's not happening that often unless mom's refusing to sign, the papers. There's nothing exciting happening anymore.
yeah, we were just talking, kind of talking about 2026. These kids seem to be a little more organized, and they're talking about. There was talks. I don't know how much it's gotten any further about moving the signing day to early June or July, and I think that would bring the excitement back because now you've shrunken the season a little bit, and there is going to be some hype building up into that season. And I think we could get that back. I don't know if there's any more smoke to that, but that would get
That
back.
would be kind of cool for the coaches too, you would think, because you're not having like they're working two full-time jobs during the regular season because they're recruiting the future. They're trying to retain the present and also win so that helps for the future too. It's just a lot. So if they knew those guys were locked in and they just needed to, let them in the locker room and give them some tickets, that seems like an easier thing than selling them on the program mid-season.
I would like it because again, you're still recruiting, right? You would just have like, for example, this year's 2026, so 2027 would be there. The severity and how serious it is, it's not the same level,
Yeah,
and it would also help separate the transfer portal, which I think that what they did this year allowed for it to transition a little bit. But
yeah.
even with the expansion of the playoffs, it's just a lot at keen times. And if you could do this in July, I think the kids would like it better too because I don't think they want to go through their last football year either deciding what they're going to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Now, 2026 has started off well for Florida. They have a commitment from Will Griffin. He's from Jesuit High School, which is right around the corner from me. This is an exciting thing to have, one of the very biggest chess pieces already in place going into the season. He is a Gator for life. And so I, don't think there's any risk of him going anywhere else, which I think that's also relief to Gator fans. But what's the ceiling for this class realistically? Like, what do you think we can expect in terms of where it might end up falling? What we're gonna go after? Billy's got to continue to produce, right?
Yeah, and quick shout out to the network, the agency. They just signed Will Griffin today, who also represents DJ. So awesome for that to kind of be in the same family. They also represented Shamar. But yeah, I think the ceiling for this class. I'm the Disney Gator, as anyone who follows High Top knows that. So I'm excited about it. But I think what there was a lot of optimism this time last year, but it was I need to see what they can do. And
Yeah,
then obviously you know how it started, and it was shaky. And class was 50th, and it was in shambles. And then it closed very strong, and it's like I saw what I needed to see. DJ Lagway obviously provides a lot of value, and it closed the way that it did, finishing top seven. I think there isn't that wait and see anymore. And I think with what Rob Sale and the offensive line was able to do, there's a lot of top offensive linemen, it seems like, that are interested way more than before. Again, I know we don't always land them, but the pond we're fishing in, it seems like for that particular position group seems to be very well. Will Harris turned a lot of heads in the secondary. In my opinion, this past class was the strongest class. Just the production on the field turned heads. Chapman turned heads on the defensive line.
I'll get right back to the video, but first, I appreciate BetUS for all their support. Just quickly, make sure you're betting with them and using their code YouTube150. That'll get you a 150% signing bonus on your first deposit. You'll also get 125% on your next two deposits. All of that up to $2,000. With the Super Bowl coming up and a red hot Gator basketball team on weekly, make sure you're betting with BetUS.
And in a weird way, I've been saying, I said, look, they're getting the NIL thing figured out. The rev share seems to be kind of getting things figured out. We're taking a reset. It feels like in recruiting where, okay, all the money seems to be pretty much even. Let's get back to who's going to develop me and put me to the next level. And that's where I think Florida's going to able to have the edge. They can compete NIL wise. They're able to get big brands. I don't think we're still going to be able to throw cash and get some of these big guys. That just doesn't. That's not Napier's style or even Florida style. It is what it is. But I think they'll be able to compete, kind of how Georgia. I've been saying Georgia hasn't. They got labeled as thrifty, but they've
Yeah.
always been able to develop.
Well, Kirby had a statement this week where he essentially said if there's guys where the bottom line is going to be NIL, we're probably not going to be in those final conversations with them because that's
Yep.
not the kind of player we want to recruit. Do you think that that's Billy's mentality because he wants team first guys that want to play at Florida? Do you think that's Billy's mentality because that's the wallet he's working with? Like where do you think that comes from?
I think some would argue the wallet. I think that's just the way who he is. He's been that way since he started. He's came out and said we're not going to outbid for players. Lagonza Hayward said on a podcast that he turned away a 5-star wide receiver because he wasn't wired right. That's something that I've always kind of spoke to too. I think, and it's you either way works. Jimmy Johnson, obviously great coach. He was able to manage that type of locker room where you have a bunch of superstars, big egos. That works for that. Billy, I've always said I would probably work on Billy's team. My ego wouldn't fit the culture that he's trying to build. Just again, Princely was a guy that reminded me of that. Great player, but just culturally wise, doesn't fit that kind of what they're trying. Again, this logo is what comes first, wherever I'm pointing at, versus the name on the back. And that's just the way I think he operates. Which it's not sexy, it's not always the flashiest, but I think how we finished last season, the reason you're able to finish that way in that asset is because of the culture that they built.
Which I do think is the most sustainable type of culture is to have one that is built on a foundation of caring about the logo on the front as opposed to the name on the back. Fun fact for you, my aunt was the sports psychologist for those football teams in Miami when Jimmy Johnson was the coach. So I'm sure you can imagine. She's never shared any of the stories because she's not allowed to, but you can imagine, I'm sure, the things that she heard and saw in that building. But is there anything you're hearing about this class that you think we should be aware of, have our eye on, any big names, anything like that?
Yeah, Emmanuel Ancho, big, the number one player I think in the country, the number one offensive tackle for sure. At I think it was one of the games they have, the little Hall of Fame games they have. The buzz that he was speaking to Florida again, a lot of buzz from the O line, from a lot of offensive linemen. About 3 or 4 of them had a lot of interest in Florida. Again, Emmanuel, if Rob Sale and Billy pulls this off, I mean, Gator Nation would be in awe because just landing the flashy, big time offensive linemen, those guys are the sexiest things in sliced bread anymore. It feels like, and again, I think he's the number one player in the class, not just tackle. Like we're talking, like Jeremiah Smith was last year, Arch Manning 2 years before that. I think Bryce Underwood or Keelan, whichever you're looking with, like it's usually a quarterback, an offensive lineman. Like
That would be huge.
Yeah,
I mean, Florida has not. I'm trying to think back to the last time Florida has landed a really, really good offensive class, and I mean, we're probably talking into the mid 2000s at least, right? I mean, it's
lineman.
yeah, lineman.
Yeah. Yeah, again, Seaton was somebody who we were obviously high on. That would have been great.
Yeah.
If we see what he's done, I mean, he was all freshman, all American at left tackle for Colorado. I mean, and again, that's what you want in a 5-star. Someone who can come in and make an impact right away. I think this past one was exciting to various dice. There's a lot of potential. And look, even Najee Harris, I'm a big Najee guy. He was 3-star guy, but people kind of overlook it because he wasn't the flashiest coming in, but he's been a day one guy. He kind of fought a little bit with he's at FSU now. I can't think of his name, but Richie Leonard. A little bit back and forth, but really kind of I think took that role and did a phenomenal job last year as a sophomore. And again, he did what you would almost expect a 5-star to do, but just didn't come in with the same hype. So I don't know if I can't say they've done a poor job. It just hasn't been as flashy. And again, you want guys that can come and make an impact right away.
Well, and it's not just the Napier thing. Florida has not been elite at recruiting offensive linemen for a really long time. Like, think about even just, I don't know, we could go down the entire list. Like, it was something we said about Muschamp. He's got to recruit better offensive linemen. It was something we said about McElwain. We said about Muschamp. Like, this is not a problem unique to Napier, but Florida has not done a great job having an elite offensive line for a really long time. And it feels like, I mean, I think this offensive line is going to go into the season probably ranked top 5 in a lot of people's minds, which is wild to think about the liability we thought it was last July, to where we are now. So you've got to think that builds the momentum with these high school players for sure.
Yeah, a massive turnaround. Obviously, the hype that came out there, the concern for right tackle is where it started, and then honestly, the offensive line conversation was the quietest out of everything. Which is that's when you know it's good when you're not talking about it, and we didn't talk about it too much. There are still areas for improvement, but sack rate, everything went down tremendously. There's still a question mark on whether or not Rob Sale is extended. I haven't heard anything. I think they're trying to work that out, but yeah, again, those are the big names which excite me. I know Isaiah Williams, 4-star linebacker, is another one. Was committed to FSU. This is what Corey Bennett said, by the way. This is secondhand. We had him on the show. Great information. But Isaiah Williams committed to, I think he was Maryland and FSU, and wanted to jump on Florida. And again, this kind of speaks to what we were just talking about, their mindset. Florida said, hold up a bit. Let you kind of jump from here to here. Let's make sure this is real. We don't want to just say yes because it doesn't seem, we want to get to know you a little bit more before we jump in the boat with you. But there seems to be a nice kind of healthy balance now between the two. The relationship has really built over the last few months, and again, I think they've done a great job recruiting linebackers, and he could be another one we could land.